Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Market Like a Mother, where at Radiant Marketing, Karen Cummings and I are debunking myths in marketing. And today we're going to be debunking the myth that old school selling is dead. So let's get into it. Hey Karen, how are you?
Hey Lauren, good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited for today. This one's a little different than the other topics that we've been talking about this season so far. So I'm excited to get into it. It is the myth that old school selling is dead. So a little different. I feel like we've focused a lot on social media and stuff lately. So I'm excited to dive into this one today.
Yeah, me too. I think that this is becoming more and more prominent as we get further along in digital and like immersing ourselves as consumers in something that feels, as much as we try to make it feel connected, it still feels disconnected. So there's some old school tactics that I'm excited to talk about today and how those can really help business owners feel a little less I, I guess frustrated or stressed about digital strategies, because I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people are seeing is like, there's a lot of noise. Their tactics and their strategies are becoming less effective. And so this is another opportunity to kind of explore things that are fresh but old, right?
Yes. Exactly. I
And
love that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
for
maybe not
anyone
feel,
listening who
oh,
might be thinking, they're not exactly sure what old school selling is, could you maybe give us just like a little background for someone who might be a little confused?
yeah, I guess when we're talking about old school right now today on this conversation, we just mean like tactics prior to digital. So the things that people more exclusively relied on before digital was even a thing. So those offline tactics um, that we are kind of turning back to because of the overwhelm within the digital space. So not to like spoil what we're going to talk about later, but I think some big ones might be like direct mail, or like sampling, or things that are happening not in our inboxes and on our phones, but in real life.
Yeah, which I love. And I, like you mentioned, I feel like there's such an oversaturation in the digital space these days where it's people are almost surprised, I feel like, when they're approached in not a digital strategy. You know what I mean? It's exciting to see a brand in real life or get to interact with something in real life because everything these days is online. So I feel like it's almost, people are craving that now more than ever.
Yeah, and I think a lot of big brands are turning back to it too, because like you and I were chatting before, and we were saying how, people's mailboxes are more open than their inboxes. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
easier to get seen in a mailbox than it is to get seen in an inbox. I mean, you definitely still need to apply all of your kind of best practices there. So your junk mail doesn't equal spam mail.
Right.
But I think that's a space that more brands are recognizing as an opportunity to either do something their competitors aren't doing, or but also just to get noticed. I was just reading another article yesterday about a large retail brand that's going back to like a printed, mailed holiday gifting guide with some like fun kind of new nuances and modern touches to it. But I, like you and I were like, oh, I want that gifting guide. Like, how
Oh,
fun would
yeah.
that be to get that in the mail?
Oh my gosh. I versus if you're even thinking too, like if another email showed up in my inbox that was just like holiday gift guide, I mean, odds are I wouldn't even click it. You know what I mean? It would just go straight to my like trash folder, but I would be excited to get something physically like that in the mail. You know what I mean? That's exciting. So I agree. I feel like that's, people are craving that, but I just feel like, again, there's such frustrations with digital strategies, kind of thinking about the pain points here. It's an oversaturated market. So again, I think people feel discouraged getting on these platforms, creating this content and trying to, build these online communities when it feels like you're just, one of millions of people doing that. But then also too, there's confusion, like we've talked about a lot this season, of like the platforms where people should be showing up, where their audience lives. So, being able to actually reach your customers in real life is so incredibly powerful. And it's about combining that digital now with that real life strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the more businesses that enter your particular space, the more challenges we're going to see unless you are consistently like reevaluating your strategy, watching our podcast to learn how to do digital correctly.
Always.
um, and and it, honestly, like it's hard on a small business budget, but testing and trialing new channels. And so today we wanted to talk about, how to kind of go into these old school marketing tactics, like some specific ones to focus on and how to do it right. Cause you could still, like, just like anything, you could still, trial this in the wrong way and it be a flop. So I think there's some key things we want to talk about today that will help people that are like considering these channels and these options be more successful in it too. Also, one more note, because I have to talk about the holiday guides again. This is something Target also sends these out, and Walmart has done some in the past too. And it's so fun because both my kids, 7 and 4 years old, will sit down with the little guide, the holiday toy guide, at our table, and they'll each like circle an item as they flip through the pages together. And it's just like this super fun experience that these brands are providing me with and us when you have that like real tangible thing in front of you. So it's literally like they're not going to, I'm not going to have them sit on a computer and scroll through the online website, but having them sit there like side by side, all cute and, friendly with one another and circling
That's
and
so
making their Santa lists. Yeah, it's really
see,
cute.
I love that. And you can't get that in an email. Like that that would be no fun in digital form. So I love that. I mean, again,
Yeah, can't
perfect
circle my
example right
laptop.
there. Exactly. So as always, we want to give you guys some framework, some actual, tangible things that you could be looking at. So we'll go through them and then we're going to dive into them a little bit more for you. But we're going to give you the 4 keys to bringing traditional tactics into your modern marketing. So, like Karen had mentioned before, there's direct mail and those personal touch points that are so important. And again, I think people are craving those more than ever. There's experience and sampling, my personal favorite. I mean, who doesn't love a free sample or getting to test out a product or a service in real life? Authority, that's built through press and earned media. And then the 4th one is basically just combining all these, being able to combine your digital strategies, your social media strategies with, these old school tactics that really never go out of style. So let's talk a little bit about direct mail, because again, I'm fresh off thinking about that, the catalog, the holiday guides just on my brain. So let's start with that.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify too, we're not saying ditch your digital strategies by any means. And so I
Yes.
like the 4th point that we have on here because it is important to remember that this is just one piece of an integrated strategy. You want to make sure that you're still deploying a very strong strategic digital presence as well. But I think this is like a fun one to trial and test if you're seeing that your digital is kind of starting to lag, or, as the space becomes more crowded, you're noticing like your brand reach and visibility drop. This could be a great way to get directly in front of the audience that you are targeting and have more personalized interactions. So yeah, direct mail. I mean, in the most traditional way, you're putting together a piece that you're sending out to a specific demographic or zip code or audience out in the real world. So you can do that, through different mailing services. But sending something that allows them to see your brand in a different space and way can be a really effective way to get through the noise. So we've done this for a few of our clients more recently as well. And another example you and I were just chatting about was a client that we've deployed a direct mail piece that was designed to generate more visibility through existing customers. So we were encouraging them to write Google reviews. And this one was really successful for us. I mean, compared to, results we've seen in the past with like an email that goes out for Google reviews or collecting customer reviews, we ended up getting about 175 reviews within a couple of days. So it was a fantastic response for the size of the mailing distribution that we sent out. But yeah, again, like this is just a quick and easy way to get in front of the right people, and then making sure you're connecting that back to like a trackable piece. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about connecting that, but that's a key component. Like you can't just send a direct mail piece out and then cross your fingers and hope for the best. Like you definitely want to make sure you're doing everything you can to track the performance of that.
You literally, that was exactly what I was about to say next. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, just because you're kind of deploying these old school tactics, again, you can't forget the tracking and it's so much easier in digital strategies, obviously, to track and see these metrics. But before you're kind of implementing any of these strategies, do make sure you obviously have, KPIs set in mind, your goals. You want to make sure that you're tracking everything. Just another example of this, there's a brand that I love, Mason Margiela. They're a perfume brand, and their theme is kind of like travel-esque related. And they recently sent out over the summer, they were blank postcards in the mail that were advertisements, obviously for their perfume brand, but then it doubled as a, postcard. You could actually fill it out, put it in the mail. It was super cute. And again, just It wasn't as
I
much
love
selling you a
that.
product or anything, but it was a really cute personal touch point that really aligned with their brand values and their brand themes. And again, it kind of doubled as serving as something that was then purposeful for the customer. You know, you could turn around and use it as an
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
postcard. So really cute example there where it doesn't always have to be this large guide or this, comprehensive, booklet that you're putting together. It can be something as simple as that.
Yeah, I love that. That is such a little mini micro experience that they were able to create for you through their own, branding. And speaking of perfume, that kind of leads to our next point of the experience and sampling, creating trust. And you and I were chatting before the call about how both of our moms worked for Avon.
Yes.
And
Shout
my
out.
mom would pull us around in a little red wagon as she went door to door. But Avon, I think Mary Kay, like these different brands did a really good job of like sampling as you were talking about that too, and maybe more brands are doing this than I realized, but you'd get in the magazines, you'd get the little like perfume or like
Yes.
lotion samples that you peel
Oh my
off the
gosh.
page. I want to go back to more of that, right?
I know. Oh, my sister and I used to literally fight over those. I so vividly remember my mom would get Cosmo and it would have like one perfume sample and we'd literally have to alternate like who got it each month. There'd be like battles in the household because those were so great.
Yeah.
And you and I had kind of talked about this too. I'm obviously outside of Radiant. I'm in the influencer space, and a really big trend that we're seeing now is, PR boxes. You see people doing PR unboxing
Mm-hmm.
hauls. Brands are kind of more willing to send out, samples of their products to influencers whose online presence, aligns with the product and the brand values. So, they are purposeful in who they're choosing to send to. It's not random. It's not just being sent out to the masses. They're basically scoping out future customers. And being on the other end of that, I can't even tell you how many times I've received a sample of something in the mail and it has turned me into a repeat customer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sought
Mm-hmm.
out for these perfumes, these brands, these makeups. Even sunscreen was one I was sent, and I've maybe purchased that same sunscreen 3 or 4 times now. So it's a really effective way to, build loyal repeat customers. And again, it's in a way that's very pointed. So it's not like you're wasting product per se. It's going to people that will enjoy them. And I think it's
Yeah,
more than ever too with how digital everything is. Like we want to be able to touch and try the product.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know if anyone picked up on that, but that was Lauren indirectly saying, if you're listening to this and you have a product, please send her a sample. She will enjoy it and
Please.
probably purchase your product.
I will be a lifelong
um,
customer. If anything, stop sending them to me. I'm literally, I
so,
can't have any more products.
yeah, right. Reference a previous episode about her grandpa saying,
Yeah.
checking off, making sure we're filling that bank account.
Yep.
So I think a couple of points to align with what you're saying here. One is, there's sort of two options in terms of targeting. So obviously, like sampling can be an expensive marketing tactic, but if you're doing it in a really targeted way, it could be extremely effective. So that could be just through like a much more advanced demographic targeting, or alternatively, it could be through like people that have already expressed interest. So you might have a mailing list of either past customers or prospects that are filling out forms online. And that would be a great list to start with to do the sampling of your product. We helped to launch and manage a sample program for one of our clients, and it was extremely effective. And one of the reasons too that it was so effective for them is that with this particular over-the-counter product, if you sampled it and it worked like it would, then these consumers become product users for life. So it's like a lifetime product. And so, being able to trial it yourself, and in this case, it's kind of a unique product that's harder to test out and trial in other situations. But getting this sample sent to their home was a great way for them to sample product, trial it, see the efficacy, see the like profound difference from their previous experiences, and then move forward with purchasing for like a subscription for life.
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
that, if you know your audience, right, that's always our key foundational thing. Like you got to know your audience in order to know how to deploy these types of tactics. You can target that and have a really successful sampling program.
Yeah, I love that. And it was really cool, I think, to see it, firsthand too for one of our clients. So it's always cool to see these tactics, working in real life. And this is one we're actually working on currently. It's in the works as we speak. Authority through press and earned media. So this is a tactic that we are, in the process of building into some of our clients. Basically, how PR builds credibility and trust in ways that social could never replicate. Anyone can get on social media and post these days and promote their own brand, but when you actually have a verified source, a news outlet, a verified notable website publishing about your brand, that can't be replicated in an age where there's so much oversaturation online. Having that authority and that notability really, really stands out and could help your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know at the at the beginning of the episode, I kind of talked about offline tactics, old school, but this is technically it isn't offline, but it is something that I think a lot of businesses were doing prior to like the boom of social media and
Mhm.
other digital channels entering the space, and that we're seeing as an effective tactic to turn back to, especially in light of the LLM changes and what's going on with AI, because a lot of LLM models use press releases and this type of information to train the model, but then
Mhm.
also to continue to pull real time information as they are answering queries that come through from users. So it's even more important now than ever to look at press releases from an SEO kind of AI GEO perspective. And I think that's something that like traditionally in the past was not really a thought with press releases. It was like, okay, it was very PR heavy, right? Like it was just on the PR side of things. And now it's like this tactic that merges much more directly with SEO as LLMs look at the ecoverse and considering like third party information and credibility. And this is definitely a place that LLMs will turn to for that credible, trusted information. So we're kind of more recently exploring it with all of the changes again. Like we've done, press releases in the past. We've done a lot of like local PR initiatives for our clients, but this is looking at it through like a different lens now that we have AI entering the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And something to note too that's interesting now is if you're looking at the platform TikTok, in order to be verified now, you have to have a minimum of three notable news segments or publications posted about yourself as a personal account or as a brand. So this earned media, this press is important in social media now too, because in order to get verified as a creator or brand, on some of these platforms, you need to have a handful of these, basically unpaid press, actual earned notable press from reliable sources. So it's interesting too, because that's been shifting lately too, kind of showing how important this old school kind of method of PR is.
Yeah, I love that because I think there's a lot of, creators and influencers online that are not valid and not credible. And so I do like that we're turning to, I think one of our clients too has is in a space that is fairly unregulated. And so there's a lot of like false advertising and marketing that's causing issues. And a lot of that comes through like the influencer space. And so I think that I love that that's the direction we're going with some of that to like get a little bit more control over it. But yes, if you're a creator, influencer, like this is definitely something to be considering as well. And then just making sure you are drafting them for LLMs too. So like it's
Yeah.
clear, it's descriptive, you're using bulleted lists to make things easy to consume. You definitely want to talk in like that kind of clear, natural conversational tone too, because the closer you are to like answering the queries that your users are likely going to be sending in the copy of your press releases, the more likely the LLMs will be to cite that. So just making sure you've got that, some of the structured kind of schema in place for it to really perform for you from a SEO LLM perspective, in addition to being like valid sources of information for things like you just mentioned with social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about at the beginning, I want to kind of throw it back to our last episode here where we talked about baking a cake and kind of having all of these ingredients be necessary. Perfectly applies in this exact situation too. So again, you can't rely on just these old school selling methods without the digital and vice versa. Again, you could have, a successful strategy that includes some of them, but in order to really see the best growth and the best long-term success for your brand, you're going to want to combine, both of these digital and these old school methods. And I think that's a really important thing we want to stress here. It can't be one or the other, really.
Yeah, and I think there's easy ways to do that too, so that, we use something called QR.io to add QR codes and track those scans on an ongoing basis. You can create dynamic codes too, so you're able to like change those links if something was to change, and those QR codes still work. So you have like a lot of opportunities to see what that actual engagement with a direct piece, like a printed piece, is. So whether that's, we didn't really touch on this, but another space that, I think depending on your industry, a lot of companies are seeing impactful for them is trade shows. So if you are, in an industry that makes sense, then having collateral that has trackable links, whether that's specific landing pages for that trade show or QR codes that they can scan, so you can track still the performance of those, that and tie that all the way down to sales of your product, or consultations booked, whatever your kind of key metric is there. That's the final conversion point. But yeah, without this piece, then you still kind of are flying blind. You might see an uptick in sales, but then you're like, was it attributed to this or that? So of course, like we always talk about, making sure you have some solid tracking in place to give you visibility into the data that's going to help you make decisions is super important.
Absolutely. And I think too, a perfect like example of combining it is, again, being on the flip side of receiving a lot of these PR packages and these samples. They're always, always, always followed up with emails, no matter what. It'll usually be an email asking, did you receive the package? Here's some details about the product in it. Here's, if you liked this product, we recommend also trying this one. So usually you get a 3 or 4 email sequence, and, having received this package, opened it, interacted with this product in real life, that even increases the likelihood of, me then opening those emails that might have otherwise sat in my inbox. So you see a really, really effective, you could even see a boost in email opens, having combined it with that real life strategy. So again, one without the other could be effective, but combined, I think that's when you see the real success there. So it's
Yep.
it's definitely, it's like we said, it's important to combine those. And I have a question for you, Karen.
Oh,
if
okay.
if someone has never done offline marketing, and they're listening here today and they're thinking, I haven't really employed a lot of these strategies, where would you recommend someone starts if they want to just this week kind of start implementing some of these strategies?
I mean, I feel like the first thing they would want to do is evaluate their audience and understand if it's an audience that would potentially engage with or interact with offline tactics, whether that's a direct mail piece or a trade show. I think that knowing your audience, and if you don't know, then you could always ask, so you could survey, do a little focus group, collect information to help inform that decision. I think that would be, the first place to start, and then start small, so you might do something, use free tools, use low cost tools to create your printed pieces, to mail them out. Maybe that's even like doing some of that distribution by hand if you're doing a smaller set. But yeah, doing, not starting with something like so humongous and scary from a budgeting standpoint that like, if it doesn't work, you're going to break the bank. But like kind of sampling and testing it to continue to optimize and iterate and grow as you see those results start to come in.
Absolutely. As we were talking about this too, I'm even thinking we're in the process of onboarding a new client now at Radiant. And they asked on our call the other day, can we get business cards? I'm like, even that, you know what I mean? Having like that tangible, physical, bit of marketing that you could hand out, whether it's at a trade show or just in your day to day. I'm like, that's even a great place to start too. If you don't have a physical business card, that's that human connection and being in person with people and being able to hand that, it could have a QR code on it as well, is kind of an easy place with something you could even start on today, just thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're like, oh yeah, we still use business cards. I think with COVID too, it's like everyone like, became recluses, and then we like came back out into the world, and we're like, oh, we need to keep these business cards going. Cause I do think it's just again, like it depends on the audience, but I think there's a difference between, oh, scan my digital business card and add me to your contact list. Like that could work.
Right.
But it also could get immediately lost. If you're just meeting this person, you forgot their name, like where did they even go in my contact list? I think I probably have like 9,000 contacts in my phone.
Yeah.
Versus like a physical business card where it's like you're leaving the event, you kind of, I don't know if everyone is like me, but I have like a little bit of time, post event where I'm kind of going through the collateral and the cards and the things that I got, and then I'll do my follow-ups that way. So I agree. Like there's a little, and you said this earlier too, with digital, we don't get to smell, taste, feel, touch. And I think that's where like this physical stuff can be so powerful, is it like it pulls in other senses too
Mhm.
that we don't activate when we're working in the digital space.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And to give you guys kind of some more reflection or kind of ways that you could audit your own marketing, like we always love to leave you with, we have some questions just for you to ask yourself this week and kind of take a look at your strategies. So are you relying on only digital channels right now? Which you are, you're not alone. A lot of people are. And are they working like you want them to? Is it time to employ some of these other, in-person
Mhm.
strategies that we talked about? Do you show up in places that your competitors might be ignoring? So again, are you able to kind of get that one up on them, that competitive edge by using some of these tactics? How can you build more trust with personal or physical touch points with your audience, with the
Mhm.
audience that you hope to attract? And are you diversifying your marketing, or are you putting all of your energy right now into short-term visibility? Which, an example of that could be social. So definitely, looking at other ways that you could broaden up your marketing strategy to reach more people.
Absolutely. I think those are great questions for our listeners to consider as they, again, like go into the new year and are planning their, budgeting for 2026 and the different initiatives they want to and campaigns they want to deploy.
Yeah, amazing. And so our takeaways, we debunked that myth, another myth debunked, that old school marketing is in fact not dead. It is alive and well, and we're doing it here at Radiant even. Traditional methods work because human connection works. That's been a major theme, I think, this whole season for us, is the importance of human connection.
Mhm.
Blending those physical touch points, sampling and earn trust with digital reach and strategies and tracking. That's key. And then the businesses who master both are the ones who scale sustainably. So growing in a sustainable way, successful long-term growth is what we're always striving for. So this is just another way to help achieve that.
Awesome. Yep. I love it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Karen, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you, Lauren. See you
Bye.
guys.